this story I just found so outrageous. And it is so indicative of why we have spent more time than I want to on so-called liberals who propagate Islamophobia. And regardless as to whether or not they think it exists or not, the idea of Islamophobia existing, I have a problem, obviously, with the Pam Gellers of the world, who are also Islamophobes. But they don't have the reach that a liberal Islamophobe might have. Because everybody knows, as soon as you listen to Pam Geller for a moment, that she's a nut job. She's a lunatic. She's not very bright. She's not well educated. But there are some liberal Islamophobes who did grow up in wealthy suburbs. I don't know. Places like Malibu. Who knows? California. Who have the opportunity to go get a degree at a nice school like a Harvard or a University of Chicago or a Stanford, let's say. And then they spin a big yarn about blah, 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 pseudo-intellectualism. At the end of the day, the fear of Islam and the fear of Muslims suddenly becomes rational. So much so that the idea of Islamophobia doesn't even exist in these people's minds. Now, I don't know if people like that, back in April, when people at the Irving City Council of Irving, Texas, decided to support Texas House Bill 562, the anti-Sharia law, because they were afraid that because there was something inherently dangerous about Islam, and so inherently dangerous, I don't know, maybe they looked at the polling. Some poll said Muslims around the world want to spread Sharia law and spread their caliphate. In fact, one speaker said, Sharia law is Islam, and Islam's goal is to immigrate, assimilate, and annihilate. That's like saying it's just like a really bad idea that spreads. And so they wanted to support in Irving, Texas, a state law that is an anti-Sharia law that basically, I guess, said, I mean, the subtext is that the use of foreign law is prohibited. I don't know what that means, foreign law. I guess that could mean like things like kashrut. I don't know if the intention was to get rid of kosher delis. I'm not sure. It may have been, but obviously ridiculous. Now, what's the danger of that debate? What's the danger of that debate? Of people getting up there and saying, we have to pass a law that says we can't have Sharia law in Irving, Texas, because it's creeping. It's a bad idea and it's creeping into everything. What does that create in terms of an environment in Irving, Texas? What comes out of that? Who could, this is just a debate. It's democracy. It shouldn't be critiqued. It's like a thought experiment almost, if you will. What possible negative could come out of it? There's a kid named Ahmed Mohamed. He's 14 years old. He is a member of the student council. He is one of those guys who is like a geek. Sort of a nerdy kid who likes to sit in his room and build stuff. I was sort of like that, but I just wasn't that bright, frankly. So like I invented, in my mind, an electric drink stirrer, and I had diagrams for, I have to say, in my own defense, both a toothbrush that I've now seen them selling where it injects toothpaste into the toothbrush and the flip-top cap on toothpaste. I had a prototype. My parents wouldn't file a patent because they said it was too expensive, whatever. Good job. Good job, Mom and Dad. Way to go. Could have made millions on a toothpaste cap. But this kid, really smart. Like one of those kids who would go down to Radio Shack and it was like Christmas for them. Buy a little soldering thing. I'm going to get a motherboard and I'm going to make like little, you know. The kind of kid you would make fun of because you were jealous that you weren't smart enough to figure out what he could do. And apparently he was big in his robotics club in middle school. Was trying to find, I think, similar kids in high school. So he's in high school. He creates, he builds this clock in basically a case with a hologram on the top of it. And he shows it to his engineering teacher on Monday. And according to Ahmed, he said, he was like, that's really nice. I would advise you not to show it to any other teachers. And he said, okay. So he kept the clock inside his school bag in English class, but the English teacher complained because his clock started beeping because it was built from a clock he bought at Target. Oh my God. So after the class, he brought it up to her to apologize. She was like, it looks like a bomb, he said. I told her, it doesn't look like a bomb to me. The teacher kept the clock and apparently gave it to the principal. By sixth period, a police officer with the principal pulled Ahmed, this 14-year-old kid, out of class. They led him into a room where 4 other police officers waited. He said an officer he'd never seen before leaned back in his chair and remarked, "Yep, that's who I thought it was." The police kept him there all day with questions. He said the bell rang at least twice. That means two periods, I guess. While officers searched his belongings and questioned his intentions. The principal threatened to expel him if he didn't make a written statement. They were like, "So you tried to make a bomb," Ahmed said. I told them, "No, I was trying to make a clock." He said, "It looks like a movie bomb to me." Ahmed never claimed the device was anything but a clock. This is according to a police spokesman. And police officers have no reason to think it was dangerous. But they don't think Ahmed was giving them the whole story. We have no information that he claimed it was a bomb, the police spokesman said. He kept maintaining it was a clock, but there was no broader explanation.
Broader? Did they want him to be like, you see, it's a device that tells time?
The spokesman explained what that meant. It could reasonably be mistaken as a device if left in a bathroom or under car. The concern was, what was this thing built for? Do we take him into custody? They led the kid out of the high school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with his hands cuffed behind his back and an officer on each arm. If you see this kid, he he's scrawnier than Matt or Michael.
Which is extremely...
That's a high level of scrawnitude. A few students gaped in the halls. He remembers the shocked expression of his student counselor, the one who knows I'm a good boy, according to him. They're still investigating the case. He hasn't been back to school. His family said the principal suspended him for 3 days for showing up at school with a clock that he claimed was a clock. I want you to listen to the video of Ahmed Mohamed. It has the quotes I just talked about, but this is the kid who was pulled out of school in handcuffs, accompanied by 2 cops on either side after being interrogated by 5 cops in a room for building a clock. And you tell me, if this kid was a white kid, or if this kid wasn't living in Irving, Texas, which had months ago had attempted to endorse a Texas law about creeping Sharia, that this kid wouldn't have had to have gone through the unbelievable humiliation. And it goes beyond that too. Play this video.
My hobby is to invent stuff, and I do a lot of stuff. For example, inventing this type of stuff right here, Transformers. You get what I'm saying here. But I made a clock. It was really easy. I wanted to show her something small at first, but they took a wrong point of it and they thought it was a bomb, so I got arrested for a hoax bomb. An officer and the principal came and took me up, and they took me to a room filled with 5 officers, which they interrogated me and searched through my stuff and took my tablet and my invention. And then later that day, I was taken to a juvenile center detention center where they searched me. They took a fingerprint and mugshots of me, and they searched me until my parents came, and then I got to leave the building and the station, and I went home and talked to my parents about it because I couldn't call my parents during the interrogation until I got to the station. It was a digital clock, and the digital display had four number lines on it. A number line of hour and a number line of minutes. And the clock was made in a metal case, a metal box, and I put the circuit board in there with the digital display in there with it. And I put it in place, and I showed my teacher, and it got to the point where I was arrested. But it was made, and I closed it with a cable. So, because I didn't want to lock it to make it seem like a threat, so I just used a simple cable. So it won't look that much suspicious. And the clock itself, it was in a box you could get at Target for like $5, $10. And they were telling me it's a suitcase, briefcase. It was like a movie bomb, which is what they were charging me of. No, I never said anything about I have a bomb. Never. It made me feel like I wasn't human. It made me feel like a criminal.
I mean, you know, this is it's just stunning. And I'll tell you something. I mean, take this kid. I mean, I don't even know if you need to do this. But take this kid, put him in Yemen, have him sit at a cafe, watch someone get blown to bits by a drone strike. Take this kid, put him in Pakistan, have him see people who refuse to get vaccinations because the CIA ran a fake vaccination program, let him watch his cousin die from a disease that could have been prevented by a vaccination, but for the suspicion sown by U.S. foreign policy. Take this kid, put him in Iraq, put him in Libya. I mean, what do you think that kid does when he grows up? What do you think the chances are that he says, I'm being targeted as a terrorist? Do you think he says, I'm going to pull myself by my bootstraps, and I'm going to use all the tremendous amount of opportunity available to me, and I'm going to make a disruptive device that is going to really disrupt the blender market, and I'm going to make millions and show everybody? Or do you think that this kid gloms on to his identity, which he has been shown is his fate and perhaps his doom, and becomes an extremist? I mean, this is not difficult. This is not difficult to see how corrosive this is. There are a lot of people who have been, tweeting at him. They have set up a fund, I think, for both his defense and just a way to show the kid that he's supported, and that, the whole there's only a narrow slice of, well, I don't know if that's true. It's that narrow. But there's only a slice of our society that is that moronic and stupid and bigoted. But it's why...
Thought experiment driven.
I mean, it really is. I mean, people have asked, why spend so much time on someone who is largely irrelevant? And there's nothing worse, in my estimation, than a bigot, except for the person who tries to sort of mainstream bigotry. Thomas Friedman was subject of a lot of my ire back in the aughts, because he was the one who basically made it okay for liberals to support the Iraq War, or moderates to support the Iraq War, the invasion and occupation. So when I see people who are taking a rational view that just leads them, because of logic, to the idea that that kid deserved what he got because, hey, he's a Muslim, and we know if you are a Muslim, then you are necessarily more likely to be a threat to all of us. So you just can't take that chance. If a kid like that comes in, who's known to be in a robotics class and shows his engineer this clock, well, you just can't take that chance. Right? I mean, because that's the logical conclusion. If you tell me there's something inherent in Islam, and that it's not just about extremists or fanatics or people who are subjected to political oppression, that it's inherent in Islam. Well, anybody who's then a Muslim, right, is really just a ticking time bomb, at least statistically speaking. I mean, that's the danger of that crap. It's heartbreaking. And for every story like that you hear, there's a low grade. I mean, it's a very similar dynamic in some ways to what we see with policing in general and the black community. You'll see a couple of stories that will pop up and get attention. But for every one of those stories, there are, what we call microaggressions. They're not micro in that individual's life. They define that individual's life. For people who don't remember what it's like, being in high school, you walk down the hall. If nobody says hello to you that day, it defines your sense of self. If two kids say hi to you with a smile, all of a sudden you're feeling good. And, you know, hopefully the kids got, you know, parents who are able to deal with something like that. But the last thing in the story is the kid vows never to take an invention to school again. That's great. That's great. You know what I hope? I hope the town of Irving gets sued for so much money that they have to de-charter themselves, because it sounds like a horrible effing place. I hope this guy sues them and makes them turn Irving, Texas into Islamabad, Texas or something. That's what we're going to do. We're either going to take $700 million from you or just change the name of Irving for like one day a year to Islamabad. That's what I would like to do. That's what I would do if I was him. Unbelievable.